True Tea. Your questions, my brutal honesty.
Your stupid ideas that I used to make fun of.
Hey guys, it's Kat and it's time for your daily dose of True Tea. Today I'm drinking iced tea from Brisk. It's extremely fancy and expensive.
Wait. You mean this? Wow, your tea game is weak. Like, I love my tea, so to hear that you think that Brisk tea is fancy is just warning me about what I'm about to be facing. Now, if she's actually drinking another tea and not this Brisk iced tea, please tell me, Bees, this is seriously bothering me.
Anyways, let's just jump right into today's email. Hey Kat, first I wanted to say that I think you're so brave for speaking on the issues of race, the LGBTQIA+ community, and so much more. Your videos have been very helpful to me and my friends, and I thank you for that.
First off, how many letters are supposed to be in that now? Because they've added on 3 and still add the plus sign. So, like, what can't be covered with LGBTQ+? How many more letters do y'all need? And what the hell do those last 2 letters mean? We're not even done with the letters and I'm already having trouble with it.
In a nutshell, one of my white friends, we'll call her Rebecca, of over 8+ years sent me a long rant about something race related, and I told her that I disagreed and then tried to educate her, but she wouldn't listen to me. She literally uses every white feminist, white supremacist rhetoric you could think of, and she's vehement in defending her white privilege and her white fragility. I have unfriended her as now, and we are no longer friends. My biggest question is, while talking to her, the most difficult thing I had to deal with was, how do I talk to white people who use the Italian, Irish, Jewish, Catholic, Russian oppression to say that they do experience racism as a white person?
Do you see what you've done? Your stupid argument has even made my cup sick.
Okay, so first of all, True Tea, I think that everyone who gets into these really long conversations with their white friends about racism, who are starting to feel like really bothered by it and really upset by it, just should unfriend these people. One of the things that I did on my personal Facebook page is to defriend basically everyone who started to post really shifty things, especially around the time of the whole Mike Brown situation. I definitely have made my social media experience a lot more positive because I got rid of all those like white people who were like slowly but surely revealing their hoods, their white hoods in the midst of that conversation. But
oh my gosh, she literally just said that if you disagree with her, you're no longer good enough to be her friend. That disagreeing with her on the internet is just as bad as going and lynching her. She seriously thinks that all white people want to join the KKK or that they are in the KKK. This is disgusting. And then to add it on top, you just delete them off of your Facebook so you can have your own little echo chamber. I completely disagree with no longer being friends with somebody just because you have different ideas when it comes to some things. Now, if these people were literally saying that they think it's okay to lynch people and stuff, then fine, take them off. But for people who just don't agree with you, ignore them. These past 2 weeks, I have been getting so much hate. I have seen so many ideas and opinions that I didn't like. But I didn't remove a single one of my friends, no matter how rude they got. I just made it to where their posts weren't shown on my newsfeed for a short period of time. And the fact that you SJWs claim to talk and listen to what other people say, y'all sure do love silencing others.
But personally, I'm always kind of entertained when white people bring up the Irish or the Italian in conversations about racism, because they always really leave out like some of the most vital facts about that whole situation. First of all, the Irish were definitely enslaved, and not in the same way that Black people were slaves. I think it's important to understand that there are several different types of slavery. most of the Irish were in indentured servitude, essentially. It was not comparable to the chattel slavery that Africans went through. It's just not even the same thing, but they were definitely enslaved, and they were definitely priced at a lower price than black slaves. That's all very true.
You just admitted that Irish people, my ancestors, were seen as less valuable than black slaves. I do have to say that I'm thankful that you at least admit that Irish slaves were a thing. A lot of BLM people say that white people have never been slaves. So at least this is a step in the right direction.
However, what people need to understand about the Irish when they came to America is that they were not considered white. Okay, whiteness is a construct, and that's something that I think people need to all understand. Whiteness is a construct, and there was a time where there are certain groups of people who we look at in America as white that weren't white at a certain point in time. The Irish became white through basically supporting anti-black unions who were trying to exclude black workers from the union. So it's true that, yeah, the Irish went through, a lot of things in this country when this country was first established. It's also kind of facetious to compare that to the racism that the black people experienced, because it's really not the same in America. If you're really interested in looking into like the deeper history of this specific topic, I really suggest a book called How the Irish Became White. It's a really, really good resource. I think you can find a lot of it online, so look.
You know what else they should look into? This article I found on the fact that it was a black man who was the first slave owner in colonial America. It was a black man. So that means that the first person to oppress black people was another black person. And if you don't believe me, just Google it. It's everywhere. But these people love to ignore that itty bitty fact.
Into that. Yeah, I think people need to all understand that, both the Irish and the Italians are Catholic, usually. Obviously not all Irish and Italian people are Catholic, but they're Catholic. And if you are an Irish or Italian and you want to, for instance, join the KKK, a lot of people will not accept you into the KKK because you're Catholic. There's a lot of oppression of religion that's happened. The oppression of the Catholics is very, very true.
My God. Why do you keep bringing up people being in the KKK? Like, do you really, really think that all white people secretly want to join the KKK? You could argue that there are a lot of black people who want to secretly join the KKK too, because there were black people who helped the KKK kill other black people. So, you should probably get off of this whole, oh, white people want to join the KKK or white people are already in the KKK stuff, because it can be used against you easily.
And I think it's also really important, as I'm thinking about this and realizing this, to understand that there's a difference between what happens in America and what happens in Europe. I think in the UK, they very recently have removed anti-Irish signage on places. So and if you look at the demographics of who is poor in the UK, there are more impoverished Irish people than any other white European group.
You admit that there were anti-Irish signs all around Europe, yet you still claim that Irish people can't play the I was oppressed card? You admit that people oppressed us. You admit that things were hard. You admitted that we were seen as less valuable than a black person. But you can't allow us into the we are oppressed because our ancestors were oppressed club. And I actually think I know why. Because that means that you have to admit to yourself that white people have been treated just as poorly as black people, and it has nothing to do with your skin tone. It's just a shitty world.
So, that's very true. That's very real in Europe. In America, not so much. I actually asked my followers very recently, if they were Irish, to tell me how the oppression of the Irish affects them to this day. I wanted to know what that looked like for them and how they felt about it today. And the overwhelming majority said that they maybe do have someone not too far removed in their family who was technically enslaved, but it doesn't really affect them today.
It doesn't affect them today because it doesn't affect anybody today. Your ancestors possibly being enslaved doesn't affect you, and my ancestors possibly having been enslaved doesn't affect me. It has nothing to do with what happens now.
The Irish and the Italians both assimilated into whiteness in America. They, in a lot of ways, let go of their cultures, and a lot of ways let go of their languages and their customs that they had. There's a lot of lost history within the Irish and the Italians because of that, because the idea was they needed to be more like a white American, and they were, and now we don't really look at them as any differently than any other white person in America.
So, by that, you have accepted yourself into whiteness too, because you definitely don't dress or speak like any other native African that I know. I've actually met a ton of Nigerians, and you sound nothing like them. You have an American accent, so, honey, you have whiteness.
This is like not a very eloquent video. I actually been really wanting to make a video about this specifically, but this is true tea. I'm being raw. So I think it's a silly comparison, and I think the thing I always say in response to those people is, how does that affect you today? Because I can trace how slavery affects me today. I can trace how slavery affects Black people to this day, and these things are observable. The redlining of districts maintained legal segregation that was taken off the books 52 years ago.
It was 52 years ago that segregation was taken off of the books, and it has been no longer seen as an acceptable thing. Yet you are still affected by it? Oh, yeah, you're affected by it because BLM is trying to bring it back.
So yes, it's true that they were oppressed, but how does it affect you today? A lot of the people that I've spoken to that are native to Ireland have actually said that it's really annoying when Irish Americans bring that up, because it is still something that's kind of a raw wound in Ireland. It's not, of course Ireland has its racism problems, but it's still kind of a raw wound over there. So it's kind of silly to say it over here because it's just not the same. These are not the same situations. Of course, in Ireland, you're dealing with an older country, older history. Racism is slightly different, in Europe. It's still very much the same in many ways, but it's slightly different because a lot of it's more xenophobia than anything else. A lot of it is more oppression or rejection of certain religious ideals than anything else.
I agree. Racism is extremely different in Ireland. I will probably never claim that it is the same here as it is over there. But I'm also not the one trying to play the I'm oppressed card. But what do I know? I'm just a token female. Have a great day, you lads and lasses.